Welcome to the Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Podcast, where we help you get your ex back and have the fairy tale ending you deserve. And now, your host. He's been dubbed as the Ex-Whisperer, Kris Sider.
Okay, so we have Kris here. Kris has the same name as me, so it's going to sound really weird because it feels like I'm talking to myself here, but this is essentially the woman clone of me. What's up, Kris?
How's it going?
All right, so you've got a kind of an interesting story. You're actually successful in getting your ex back, and I figured what I'd do today is talk to you kind of about what you did that worked versus what you didn't do, but let's give us kind of a quick synopsis of how awesome I am. Go. No, I'm just kidding. Give us a quick synopsis of your situation so everyone listening can kind of get a gauge and I guess apply what they learned from you to their situation.
For sure. So my situation started off, it was unique in that it was a long distance relationship that we hadn't been able to really see each other a lot. So because of the distance, things did fall apart. We did care about each other a lot, but because of distance, it was really difficult to keep the relationship going. And there wasn't really any set plan to close the distance or really a set when we could see each other again, and we did as much as we could together online, but after you meet a person and see them in real life, it's not the same. So because there was really no progress in any direction, things really just fell apart.
So who broke up with who? Was it kind of like a mutual type thing, or was he the one that said sayonara?
It was him who had said sayonara. At the time, I had been going through actually a lot of personal stuff myself, which due to that, and I had been a little insecure just because of my own previous experiences in my life. It had kind of compounded to really a frustrating situation. And he, on January 2nd, said basically that, we couldn't continue this, and he broke up with me.
So January 2nd of this year, and let's see, what is it right now? June. So it took quite a bit of time to get him back. It was
5 months.
Yeah, almost half a year. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long sometimes these things can take. So what did you do then, basically, after he broke up with you? Did you just start panicking? Did you run around streaking outside saying, "Oh, I'm on fire, the apocalypse is here," or did you just act kind of cool?
January 4th, I have all the dates pretty much memorized.
January 4th, I am that
kind of person.
That is impressive. Probably why you got him back. You're that detailed and organized.
It's on January 4th, I had asked to talk to him and see, hey, can we try and work this out? And so we talked some more about it, and things weren't working out. He wanted to try to maintain the friendship, but because there had been the relationship, it wasn't working out. I stayed trying to be friends and talking with him it was almost a month. And it's just he started getting more and more distant, which obviously hurt me a lot. And then I started looking around and be like, what can I do about this? And I came across your website.
Yeah.
And
that
in particular, your
there.
information on long distance relationships, because I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you landed on the website. Did you end up taking? There's a quiz on the website, which I know a lot of people take. And so, did you take the quiz?
I did. Where I started was I did some reading into, I read a few articles on the long distance relationship, and then also on the no contact, which really struck a chord with me that, hey, no, that definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I went back and I did the quiz and actually did one of your little webinars.
Little webinars. So you did the webinar, and if you don't know, she's actually a part of our private support group, and you're a big part of the private support group. You've been there, I feel almost since the beginning, right? Really early on.
Early February? Okay. End of January, early February, I joined.
Do you remember how many members were there at that point?
Just over 100. I think it was around 115 or something like that was when I joined.
Okay, so I think there's 7, almost 800 now, 760 or something like that.
Yeah, so I was pretty early on in it, and it was a very tight-knit group, and just it was interesting
Girl
seeing
power,
how
and I'm the only guy, so
literally
I get, it's like,
at the time you were anyways.
yeah, there was one guy who got in there, which, poor Dylan. His name was Dylan, and I remember saying, like, this is weird, like, a guy is trying to enter this group, and I was like, well, let me actually go and see if he purchased. So I looked, and it was like, holy, like, he purchased. So I was like, okay, how do I handle this? I mean, the women, I was thinking the women were just going to tear him to shreds, but the opposite happened. The women, like, loved him and just would not leave him alone. It was just almost like, it was like going to, Wonder Woman's out right now, so there's like that island of Amazonians, right? It's just an all-girl island, and then you just throw some guy in there, and they just devoured him. So, poor Dylan. I don't think he's come back since. Poor Dylan.
Yeah, he was around for a while. I saw him periodically posting.
He got his ex back, actually, believe it or not. And then he
awesome. Congrats to him.
And then he didn't want her back. Weirdest thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, but anywho, before I start
digression.
Yeah, right. This is a problem with us. We were talking like 30 minutes before we actually started recording, and we're like, we should probably really get recording here. But anywho, continue your story. You did the webinar. You probably bought the product. You're on the Facebook group. Yeah,
it was like usually I like myself. I'm fairly big skeptic about anything like this, and it was like, you know what? I am going to take a chance with this. Usually I do not do stuff like that. I'm like, haha, close window, done.
Yeah.
I actually took a chance with this because it was like, you know what? Why not? This is a situation for me that was very, very different than any other situation I had ever been in. Like any other previous relationship, it's for me, it's when it's done. It's broken. I'm not fixing it. No dice. Not happening. This particular situation was so significantly different to me.
So would you say in those situations before, when you said, I'm done, like I'm not going to try, were you always the one to end the relationship, or were they always the ones to end the relationship?
Both.
Okay. So
I have a vast experience in dealing with some pretty dumb situations that have happened.
Okay.
Everything from being cheated on, where for me, I'm very cut and dry, where it's if I've been cheated on, done. I don't want you back.
I like it. Nope. I like it.
Like, not happening. I have huge amounts of self-value, and I do not tolerate that.
Yeah, I like it.
And that's happened to me. I inadvertently, without knowing it, have been the other woman. Okay. That was a particularly ugly situation, in that I found out from the guy's fiance.
Ouch.
After the relationship ended. That one was ugly. Because I had no idea that he was in a long distance relationship. He was in the States, and his fiance was in Scotland.
Oh, wow, that's
and so I found out from her.
How do these men think that women aren't dumb? Like, they'll figure, like, especially if you really make them mad, they're going to go digging. They'll pick up his phone. They'll look and see his text. Like, how do these men think they will get away with this? Like, I'm sure some do, but I feel like generally, if they make the woman upset enough, or she has this desire, this feeling like, oh, I'm being cheated on, she's gonna steal his phone and look through it. I think that's a normal thing for any probably person to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the one where I was cheated on was actually friends of mine who I trust implicitly saw him out with the other woman.
Ouch.
I was like, okay, well, that's done.
Wow.
He tried to get me back, even just as recent as 6 months ago. That particular guy tried to get me back.
Got a bit of the grass is greener syndrome. But anyways, let's get back to our current boyfriend.
Current situation.
Right. So you're in the group. Obviously, you said you're really kind of skeptical about buying anything, but you took a chance, and that's where we are before we, again, got sidetracked. This is a problem. Yeah. This is why I don't talk to myself often.
Yeah, it's. I'm actually very glad I did take the chance with this, because it's been really just a huge learning experience for me, and a great opportunity to just network and meet new people who are in very similar circumstances, because otherwise I was going through this entire thing myself.
Yeah, yeah.
That's hard.
I was actually going to point out to you that a lot of the women on the group, I think my wife, she like asked a post the other day or something asking, hey, what do you do for a living? Just like in general. There are some really amazing women in this group. Really amazing. Like shocking to me how powerful some of them are. So just to let you know, we're going to take over the world.
Agreed. Full on.
Right.
One broken relationship at a time.
Right. We'll infect the world with our power. No, I'm just kidding.
So yes, that's pretty much my story on how I came to be in EBR after my relationship had broken down.
Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Now that you're at the bottom, how did you get back up to the top? That's probably what people want to hear about.
Well, what I did was I took very seriously the what to do during no contact, and I was very adamant of I need to work on me.
Right.
Previous relationship I did, like they had broken up, I had worked a lot on me. I had talked to a counselor and things like that. That was after I had broken up with my ex, who's the father of my daughter.
Okay.
It took me a good year to be able to actually like fully rebuild myself. And so I knew that working on me was such a prominent thing I needed to do.
May I ask, because I know it's only because I have a daughter and I know how much of a time suck it can be just to watch them. How did you find time to do that? To work on you?
Well, when I left my ex, I actually ended up moving into my dad's house.
Okay.
So he is retired, and so he was able to watch her a lot, so that I was actually able to rebuild basically I rebuilt from the bottom.
Okay.
Like, the situation, single, at the time my daughter was 4 years old, thousands of dollars in student loan, a car that was breaking down. I was on rock bottom. And an emotional wreck after a 5-year failed relationship in that one that I would never go back to. And a looming court situation, which was an ugly one as well. And it was just rebuilding basically to how I was saying it was just like, no, I'm going to be Kris version 2.0. And that's really just what I stuck with, was just I'm going to be bigger, badder, and better than ever.
Okay, so how long... So, like, right now, currently in this moment, do you feel that way? Like, do you feel kind of at top, or do you still feel like you've got work to do?
Oh, I feel like... well, to continue that story, is to, like, finish with that situation, I stayed single for a year and a half after that, and then I met Aru, my current boyfriend.
Right.
He and we did meet online, and by that point, I wasn't looking for a relationship. He wasn't looking for a relationship. We hit it off. It was
clicked.
Yeah, and it was so spontaneous where it really was, to sound cliche, and yeah, it was magical, if you will.
Magical. Okay.
It was something else. And so fast forward a year and a half later, we break up. I rebuild from there. In the time that I was doing my no contact, what I did was I had a exam that I was working on for my investment funds.
Okay.
So, which qualified me, like I had to pass that one, and it qualified me for a promotion at work, which came with a $12,000 raise, et cetera, full-time hours, better benefits, pension, all the fun stuff. Good stuff.
I like that stuff.
I passed the exam.
Yes.
I passed the exam first try.
Did you get the promotion?
I did.
All right.
Like, I passed the exam on February 28th. By that point, I was out of no contact. Like, my no contact had been done for a little while, about a week, just over a week. And I kept working on that. Things were, we talked a little bit, game stuff mostly.
Okay.
And so we were building rapport to trying to like figure out like how do we talk to each other.
Right.
Because he still wanted to be friends, and part of him really wished that everything like that we could go back to before the relationship when we were just like really, really, really close friends.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Not after a relationship. It doesn't work. It doesn't ever work.
I've never had that happen before.
It takes you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of fall into your camp. I'm sure there are like exceptions to the rule, but I think generally in most cases that's one party usually harbors something, you know?
One of my exes who like I do game with still, we stopped talking for 5 years before we could actually start talking again. And now like we're great friends. Like he and I, we play D&D together. We're in Guild Wars together. We're in a lot of different games together. Mm-hmm. But it took 5 years before we could talk.
Wow. A lot of time. So you're currently talking with the ex-boyfriend right now in the story.
Yep.
Trying to figure that out. I'm assuming you're kind of having trouble.
Yep. All right. So I spent the time focusing on me, worked on my exam, got my exam done, and just kept working on what I needed to do for me to improve my situation for me. Like, in many ways, I had to be really selfish in it for sake of, because no matter what, I have to be okay with me.
Right.
Guys come and go. That's a huge factor. Is that, yeah, they do. Yeah, I did want my ex back. However, I have to be okay no matter what.
Right. Which is, I feel like I'm preaching that all the time on the group, but some people just have that they have a hard time believing that will work. Like they see, okay, well, I understand like working on me is good for me, but how will that work to get my ex back? But it does have a positive effect going forward.
If you're in a situation where you're okay, you're positive.
Right.
Another person doesn't want to come into your life to have to pick you up, dust you off, and put you back together.
Exactly.
You don't attract anything like that other than grief. Or a person with a superhero complex, and yeah, that does never go well.
All right, so I kind of want to get to the struggles, though.
Sure.
Because I know you kind of struggled a little bit here and there. What did you do? Because, let's see, in the story right now we're in February, right? And you didn't get him back till June-ish. Yep. So we still got quite a few months to go before we hit the summit, essentially, of the ex-recovery mountain. So what happened along the way? What were some of the struggles? What did you do to handle the struggles?
He'd talk with me sometimes, and then he would not talk with me. So it was like I ended up doing like periodic little, I want to say, mini no contacts.
Okay, so you just kind of disappeared for a little while.
Yeah, and I worked on my own stuff, whether it be in-game working on achievements or learning how to do stuff, making new builds, doing my own stuff around here. I kept working on everything here and making my life interesting for me.
Okay.
And still reaching out periodically and talking. And like I had actually set it out where I wasn't going to be getting him back for a long, long time. So the fact that I got him back in 5 months, that was unexpected. I was anticipating like a year.
Okay. So you had already mentally prepared yourself that, well, this is going to take a long time, but I'm just going to see how it all kind of plays out.
I had a full-on game plan for like a year.
Oh, wow. So were you, at somewhere along the way, did you also kind of like, because I know right when you get broken up with, that's kind of when you're at the height of your emotions, and that's when you're at the height of wanting your ex back. But I've noticed a lot of women sometimes when they actually do what you're doing, over time, they're kind of like, I'm not so interested anymore. Did that happen at all? Or were you always kind of still...
I was all over the place.
Okay, so it's like 1 minute you're like, screw him, I'm not going to get him back. The next minute it's like, come back to me.
Oh, yeah, and at one point, like, I was really angry where I was like, the broad spectrum of emotion, like the full emotional range, okay. I went through it during this.
Okay. It's like being pregnant again, right?
Oh yes, it was glorious. Just how all over the place I ended up at some points. There were a few times where it was like I was ready to just like drop a banhammer and like banish him from my life forever. Not hard to do when the person you know is online. Delete and block on literally everything and just disappeared, never to be heard from again. Yeah. Oh, I almost did it a few times. I almost did it at least like 5-6 times. Just like walk away from the keyboard.
So
Do not ban, shut the computer off.
So you're clearly going through a range of emotions here, but at what point did you start to see, were you kind of like always seeing like little consistent progress, not maybe as like fast as you wanted, or was it like one particular thing happened to create this sort of snowball going forward?
Well, at the end here, there was definitely one giant catalyst.
Yes, and that's what I want. That's what I'm moving towards here.
We'll get to that. It wasn't even Cirque du Soleil. Actually, that one was another one where I almost dropped the band hammer.
I know. That's what I want to get to.
There was at one point being very upset where the whole potato thing came about.
Okay, well let's explain.
You are talking to the person who was the one of the two creators of the potato thing.
I've actually I've interviewed both. If you haven't already, go listen to the other one.
Yes, thank you, Anna.
Yep. Both of them. I got both the culprits here. So apparently, let me kind of give this a background so people are like have an idea of what the heck we're talking about, because someone may like fast forward to like 20 minutes into this thing. They're talking about potatoes. Like, this has nothing to do with exes. So basically, on our private support group, there is I want to say every single woman refers to their ex as a potato. Go.
Okay, so I was having one of my very upset, emotional, my ex is not talking to me, is being super distant, is not responding to me. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to Anna at the time, and we're talking back and forth, and then just suddenly we decided, you know what? He's being kind of like a potato, like a raw potato, sitting in the ground, doing nothing. Come back to the surface and actually be like a person or something. You need to evolve. Come on, you can do it. And that's where it all started. Was can you please stop being a raw potato in the ground surface?
The funniest part about this is because when I interviewed Anna originally, I didn't know what the heck that was about. It's just like I logged on one day and all of a sudden everyone's starting to like talk about potatoes, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like, every time I do a Facebook Live, people would be talking about potatoes. I was like, what is this potato thing? Explain this potato thing to me. But when I finally got Anna on, she went into this like super in-depth, like, it was so well worded, but it confused me so much, like the potato like explanation. So it's interesting to hear your side of things, because that, like, just go watch the other episode with Anna where I interviewed her about getting her ex back, because she like goes into this it's hilarious, this huge long-winded response explaining this idea. She was like, well, if you really think about it, like men are just like potatoes, like they're really like potatoes. And then she was like, just think about it, potatoes just sit there in the ground, they don't do anything.
That's literally what it was.
Yeah.
It was just like, just respond. Right. Stop being a potato. Just like send the response. Answer my question. Answer me. Do we have D&D on Saturday? You can do it. Out of the dirt. Answer. Use your phone. Use your muscles.
Well, he sprouted eventually. Let's get to that part now. So you said there was a couple catalysts. So we've got the potato story out of the way. Let's move to the catalysts.
So yeah, we chatted a bunch, and it was off and on. It wasn't until really Tia had done her article after she had succeeded in getting her ex back. She had written
Excellent
her article,
by the way, Tia. God bless her.
If the only thing you take from that article is make the list of what your ex liked and what your ex didn't like.
That is the easiest thing, but so smart.
It is, like, it's phenomenal where you actually sit there and be like, hey, wait a minute. This is what he liked about me. This is what he didn't like about me. Why was I doing the stuff he didn't like when he liked all this stuff about me? And then start reminding him about all the stuff that he likes, and stop doing, resolve the stuff he doesn't like. That right there. And
you obviously did that little exercise.
Oh, did I ever? I think I spent about 24 hours on it, just going through, rehashing it over and over and over again.
That's so funny.
And trying to resolve, what was I doing? Oh, right, insecurity. Yeah, I had to deal with that. What is the root cause of that? Mm-hmm. And just working to, even if I didn't get him back, how to not screw up everything else in the future for me.
Gotcha.
With that same thing. I took it as kind of like an exercise of, I'm going to try my best to get him back. if I don't, how can I improve me? Because it's always a really big exercise in that.
Yeah.
I like seeing the whole picture.
Yeah.
The other thing that she did was the different communications with your ex, like
Yes.
that chart.
That was actually my favorite part of the article. Like, to me, the listing, like the qualities he liked versus the qualities he doesn't like. I tell people that, like, well, make a list of topics to talk about or something like that. But to me, charting out the responses was so, and the chart she did, I was blown away when she turned this thing in. I was like, holy crap. Like, I was thinking, oh, why didn't I think of this? And I'm supposed to be like the person who knows, you know?
Well, it was like end of May. Like, I didn't start my chart until like the end of May, just before like my major catalyst here happened. And I had been like ready to drop the band hammer again.
Right, the band hammer. I love it.
There's a whole gaming story behind that one. And like I was like, is this worth it? Is this really worth it? That's what I was wrestling with, is like, okay, so even if I do succeed, is this worth it? Is this feasible? And it's like, yes, it is. So I broke down and just did the exercise. I think I spent an hour on it. And then I could actually visibly see the progress I had made. And I only went back like 2 weeks of communications. And it was like, no, we've got like some really consistent communications going here.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, wait a minute. So getting caught in but he's not responding. He's not responding. It's like, wait a minute. No, he actually is.
Yeah. And also you can really get a good look at the specific things he's responding to, which is really important to know, because that like increases your chances of getting him to respond more in the future. So you limit those, like ending the conversation. He's not responding anymore. He's taking forever to respond. It's really cool to have it like charted out in front of you. And sometimes that's all people need to see. They're just so far into like the next text, if he'll respond to the next text.
Well, it was like we discovered like we did some really interesting like analytical just analyzing everything that was going on in my situation. And we noticed like there was a very, very distinct pattern where he wouldn't talk during the week, but on weekends there'd be a flurry of activity. And this happened for a while. And then it progressed to, was like, hey, he's messaging almost every day. And like the first week where he messaged literally almost every day, he started almost every conversation on that one. And that was, so it was like, there's huge progress. And then he retreated. And it was quite the retreat, because I think he got a little, like, I think he kind of overwhelmed himself with it a little bit.
Well, probably just starting to get freaked out, like, well, I'm falling for her, you know, like,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to. And he's kind of backing up, perhaps. And
that is literally exactly what happened. So I ended up, here we are, one of the catalysts.
Yes.
We have finally
made it to the catalyst.
What I had been looking around, seeing if like there was anything, like any activities happening like close within his region, like within drivable range,
right, that
I could invite him to, because it would be like something really cool to go to. And I found Cirque du Soleil was going to be happening. And if anyone is not sure what Cirque du Soleil is, look it up. It is phenomenal. It is amazing.
It's cool.
Like, I've been wanting to go to this for ages. Turns out it's supposed to be today, and I'm not going to be there, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, you got him back, so it's worth the price you paid.
So I invited him, and he actually responded that while he really, first the drive was going to be too much for him. It was going to be a 4.5-hour drive. And yeah, I do understand that. But
I think let's back up. I think Jen probably helped you out more with this than me, but I do remember her telling, or like asking me, like if you, I remember you were worried, like if you should even ask him. Like you were trying to worry, like, should I do this? Should I ask him? Is that too bold or something?
Well, I asked him, and it was like, okay, he had responded, and it's like, what do I respond with?
Right.
Or do I just, like, stop talking because he said no?
Right.
And it's like, what do I do? Because I was flustered in that. And what he had responded with that I was struggling with was that it's like, well, the drive was actually, it would have been a 4.5-hour drive across an international border. So I do understand. Yeah, that's a pretty long drive. I've had to do drives like that. It's not fun.
Right.
And then And that was the first thing. While he really did want to go and see something like that, he was concerned of what would happen between us and that one of us might get it in our heads that, hey, we should try again. And he was concerned about that because he wasn't sure he could be happy with that. And if he said no and it was me who was asking, that I'd end up miserable.
Okay.
Which ties back to how the relationship ended. So it was like I was very well aware of exactly like where he was coming from with that, but it was I didn't want to leave it at that. But how do you respond to that? So that's where I was struggling with that. And you guys were a fantastic help. I'm so thankful for your guys' help with that.
Well, tell him what you did.
So I did respond, and basically it's like, yeah, no, I totally understand. Like it was a combination of a few people. We sat there and we broke that everything he said down, and we turned it. It's like we analyzed every single sentence, every single word, broke it down, and fashioned this response and sent it back to him. I never heard back on the response. Like I gave him like another week of, hey, if you change your mind, let me know. Never mentioned it again.
Right. He's trying to stay away from it.
Oh yeah, oh, did he ever stay away from that one? Like, and from there, he actually got quite distant.
Well, yeah,
he was reeling. Like it was,
yeah.
He was stuck in a situation of it's like, I just turned her down from this absolutely awesome event that I did want to go see because, well, I'm scared. That's flat out basically what it was.
That is exactly what it is. So there's your catalyst. What happens next?
So it's a few weeks later. I don't mention Cirque du Soleil at all. It's off the table, like whatever. I decided I was going to take my brother with me, and that apparently is not happening now.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. Well, literally, it's supposed to be in 5 hours.
Hey, you can still drive. Go alone, bring your kid.
From here to Hamilton is at least an 18-hour drive.
Never
no
mind.
Dice. Teleport.
You're right. We're not quite there yet. Not quite there.
Working on it. Would make an LDR a whole lot easier. So we just left it and continued gaming together, but it was instead of okay, yeah, he's being more distant. Okay, so I just continued doing my thing and being as pretty much ungettable and awesome in your face as I could be in game. Mm-hmm. Whether it be in D&D, which, yeah.
I love how you act like it didn't bother you, because in the back of his mind, he has to be thinking something about this, but the fact that you didn't bring it up and the fact that you're just sort of moving on like it didn't even bother you is probably just getting to him a little bit.
Oh, I think it was, because it was I'd log into Guild Wars, where it's a lot of our interactions over this period happened where I'd say hi to the whole guild and be like, hey, how's it going? Just talk to random people. And one of his best friends is on there who I had been very insecure about.
Okay.
Her name is Mindy, and I had been actually quite jealous about her because they have a very, very strange. She friend zoned him so hard years ago.
Oh, I see. So you're worried he might still have something there for her, but don't worry.
Yeah,
I'll beat her up for you. It'll be easy. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh no, she's in a relationship, buying a condo with her current boyfriend,
good.
and so
let's
yeah,
get them married. Bring her here. I'll teach her how to get him. I'll teach her how to get him in.
Oh no, she already got her boyfriend, everything like that. They're getting a condo. Oh, all is well in that universe. So I became her friend.
Okay, keep your friends close, your enemies close. I love it.
And it was just because he knew I was really insecure about her. So now I'm best friends with her.
Okay.
Change that dynamic.
Wow, that's really actually clever. Women, you guys come up with the most clever stuff.
Yeah, I can thank your wife for that one.
Oh God, my wife. She's a scary woman.
And in the meantime, I had I really didn't have much of a sphere of influence with him.
Okay.
So it was that's why it's all right, I've got to be 100% charismatic awesomeness and friend Mindy. I ended up a while back, Aru had started this little group chat on Facebook with a few of his friends and me. It was just something silly about do you remember like way back when, oh my God, there was a movie about like December 21st, 2012 and how it was the end of the world, and they made like this big cataclysmic movie.
2012, right? It had John Cusack in it or something?
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah. Horrible movie, but yeah.
This whole conversation started with like some big picture of, and it was a meme that was like, you need, like, basically what he wanted was all of these friends have kids. Almost all of them, with the exception of my daughter, were born after 2012. So the whole point was, okay, you need to tell your kids that they came after this.
That's hilarious.
So it was like, okay, golden opportunity. Let's add a bunch of them as friends. Okay. And just kind of like expand the sphere of influence. So it's like he sees me interacting with a lot more of his friends.
Yeah, also, I think there has to be something there about the fact that he's seeing you everywhere. It's like like advertising. You know how you'll like McDonald's will pay for a commercial even though they know you're not going to buy that minute, but they just want the brand recognition. Sort of like your own little brand. Everywhere he turns, you're there. You're friending his friends. You're just everywhere. He can't get away from you.
Yep.
Subliminal
in all the
messaging.
same. Well, we're still like in Guild Wars. We're in almost all the same guilds. In Discord, we're in all the same guild chats. It's like it was really hard to wrestle with why I was like so close to dropping the banhammers, because it's like he also was everywhere.
I see.
And it was like he didn't change it, I didn't change it. It was still there. Mm-hmm. And it's, how do you continue on with this? So it was very frustrating. So I had influenced a bunch of his sphere of influence and friended a bunch of his friends, which actually worked out really well with the recent events of his car crash last Friday.
I saw the pictures, which if they're crazy, like that's a totaled car. That's a bad totaled car.
Oh yeah, he was lucky. The what happened was, we're not sure what triggered it, but he ended up hitting the barricade on the I-90.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's like a movie stunt.
I know. He hit the barricade on the I-90 with the driver's side of the car. The impact pushed the battery into and the entire front end of the driver's side of the car into the driver's side wheel. The driver's side wheel got pushed back into the side panel of like the door, split the tire.
So he's lucky to be alive, basically.
Airbag goes off in his face, causes whiplash and concussion. The impact, just where it was, ended up causing his the front end of the car rolled along the barricade, so it just like destroyed the bumper. And then the passenger side ended up hitting the barricade and ground along the barricade, and that's what stopped him.
Wow. That's a bad car crash. I mean, the pictures look bad that you posted into the group. They did. They looked bad.
So it was like, that's not good. That happened Friday at like 8 o'clock in the morning on his way to work. And his family didn't find out till like 2:30 that this had happened. They couldn't the insurance couldn't track them down, couldn't find them. Like 3 out of the 4 phone numbers were not existent phone numbers anymore. Uh-huh. So it was a nightmare and a half trying to track down his parents. I found out the next day, like the next morning, that he's been in a car accident. Mm-hmm. So that afternoon, I ended up booking a flight and went and flew down there because during our relationship, I had missed a lot of things where I really wish I could have been there, but mm-hmm. It's just, in the situation, I wasn't able to. Like, I had court happen in there, I had a lot of other stuff happen in there. Mm-hmm. I couldn't travel.
I see. That probably took a strain on the relationship,
that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing right there, where I was like, I was going through a lot of stuff and I couldn't be there for the things that she needed him.
Did you ever rely on Tia? Because I know she's in a long distance relationship. She probably has a lot of good advice.
She probably does have a lot of good advice, but I haven't actually talked a lot about it with her.
Oh, I don't know. It's completely up to you, but going forward, you guys might want to network and at least bounce ideas off each other because you're both in long distance relationships. Mm-hmm.
That is definitely a great idea.
But you don't have to do it, so no pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure, but do it. No, I'm just...
No pressure, but strengthen that network.
Right.
So I ended up going down there. He didn't know I was going. His family didn't know I was going. And here's where we tie back to those friends that I had been befriending from the whole 2012 movie.
Oh, yeah, right.
thing.
The group chat thing. Right.
There's two friends in particular. It was like I was talking to them. They both offered me their couch because I was just like, no, I'm coming down there. And they just both offered me their couch. Like, hey, if you need a place to stay, here you go.
Oh, wow.
And so I just kind of flew down there. One of them came and got me from the airport to drop me off when we went to the hospital. One of them didn't even know we were broken up.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, it is kind of weird
like,
for you to go, like for them, they're thinking like, oh, they have to be dating because she's coming. Like, why would someone who's broken up come? But paid off for you. Big time.
Because I do random stuff.
You're spontaneous, which is great.
Yes. Spontaneous, charismatic. That is me.
That
right
is
there.
you.
And
it's like I'm talking about myself, really.
So I randomly showed up at the hospital, and at the time he couldn't see. Like it took him almost 3 days for him to actually get his sight back.
Oh my God.
Like
Bad concussion.
The concussion and the whiplash basically triggered. It was an almost seizure. So he was having an almost seizure while unconscious in the hospital.
So you saw him when he couldn't see you, basically?
Oh yeah, he had at that point he could see. Like he had the left eye peripheral vision, and that was it.
Oh wow!
So I showed up, and just had smirk on my face, and like, well, look what happened here. Just like some random line, and he couldn't look at me. Like he couldn't look at me. He spent the entire first hour of me being there, looking at his other friend, and still trying to process. Like I could actually see the trying to process that I was there. Actually, I asked him about that. It's like, so what was your first thought when you saw I was there? He's like, how are you here?
Well, he had to appreciate it. I mean, he had to have been.
He did tell me actually a few times that he was really glad I did go. And it's like I did explain to him just flat out. I wasn't able to be there for a lot of the things that I really should have been there for before.
Okay.
I'm not. Why would I not be here for this?
Right. Well, I mean, this is probably, could have been killed, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very serious. So,
yeah.
I'm assuming he gets his eyesight back at some point and is able to see you at some point.
He can also do things like eat and gets discharged from the hospital and can walk again. So it's like, yay, we have progress. So it was I flew in Monday afternoon he was discharged. Okay. So we ended up talking a bunch, some, and it was Monday night, after he was discharged, his entire back and neck was really sore, and it was just like, come over here. And I gave him, I think it was an hour and a half long massage of just trying to help loosen up some of the tension in the muscles.
Oh, is that what you were doing? I see. Loosening up the tension. Mm-hmm.
As we're sitting there watching a movie, he's sitting on a footstool. It's like, yeah. And it's just like, all right. And we talked after that, just a little bit. And yeah, things changed. He finally, and I stress finally, let his guard down a little bit and actually let me in.
It took a near-death experience and a back massage to loosen him up.
Well, it was after the back massage. It was I was staying in the guest room and he was in his room. And so I helped him because he was still wobbly and still veering right. He almost tripped over a mop and bucket at one point in the hospital because he kept veering right.
Oh, poor guy. Can't see.
Yeah.
Can't see anything.
I can't see, and just motor skill. Seriously, if he had been in a big room that was just open, he probably would have done circles veering right.
That's hilarious. Not funny, but it is funny.
I cracked that joke right to his face. So, we finally did talk, and so he sat on his bed, and I was standing there close, seeing if there was anything else I could help with, basically. And right. He just grabbed me around the waist and put his head on his hip and just held me.
Aw, that's kind of cute.
Mhm.
I'm sure.
And
So
that
what
was when he
happens
finally started to open up a bit and finally started letting the guard down.
next? Okay.
After that, like I sat down for a bit and we just talked, and he gave me a hug and he ended up kissing me.
All right. So now fireworks are happening.
Yep, and we talked, and we didn't get back together then. It was actually the next day
Okay.
before we went to bed. It was like, okay, we really need to talk. But it was like, we ended up laying there and just like held each other for a while, just enjoying each other's company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he ended up telling me that he was really glad that I had come down there, that he didn't think he'd ever see me again. And just a lot of things like that. And fast forward, really like nothing happened. It was that I was there.
Okay.
And then next day, he was still really sore. He slept terribly. Like, he slept terribly. He was up like every 2 hours.
Yeah. Did he have like any medicine or something to knock him out, basically?
No,
Oof.
he didn't.
That's probably why.
Mm-hmm. So it was like just with all the tension, and because he wasn't able to move for those first 2 days, he had heparin shots in his belly and everything like that. So
Ouch.
everything was really, really, really sore. And so next day, it's like, because he slept terribly, he was like kind of tired and cranky and irritable and grumpy, and yeah. So at one point, we had been invited with a bunch of his friends to go out for lunch with them, and he opted to not go. So I still went and left him passed out on the couch. Like, I'm going.
Right.
I'm not there to sit there and babysit him. I'm still going to go out and have fun.
Right. How did that go?
He slept on the couch and he got a little bit of sleep, and then he woke up and watched some TV and just relaxed.
How did it go for you?
Oh, it was fun. It was interesting. Like, a lot of the time on this visit, it was really, it was like this ongoing narrative in me of, am I doing the right thing being here? And I shouldn't have come to just basically like this back and forth of, I shouldn't be here. And it's like, no, this is where I have to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting.
So how like total days, how many days were you there?
I flew in. I landed at about 1:45 on Sunday, and I left 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday.
Okay, so three and a half days you were there.
Yeah.
How did the actual conversation go where you just agreed to get back together? Did you say anything like revolutionary, or was it just kind of just naturally unfolding?
Well, we did grocery shopping, and at one point he mentioned he didn't have any feeling or really a lot of feeling in his right arm. So I, of course, had to poke it. And he's like, yeah, I don't really feel that. I can barely feel that. So I poked, and then I finally just grabbed onto his hand, and he's held it so hard, so tightly. Later on, going to bed, and it was like he was going to bed, and I went and laid on his bed and was like, I need to talk to you.
Okay.
And
so you're the one who brought it up, clearly.
yeah, he wasn't going to. Like, 100%, he wasn't going to. He was like,
men are cowards,
okay,
just in general. So sometimes we need a good, strong woman to kind of set us straight a little bit.
I was like, what did I say? It was, actually, I'm really glad I did come down here. It's been great to see you again. Mm-hmm. I am leaving in the morning. And he's like, yeah, you are. And can we try again?
So
yeah. I just said flat out.
Said yeah.
Flat out. Can we try again? Yeah, we can try again. But I don't know how it's going to work. I was like, and then we discussed a little bit of like strategizing how to get this to work. The first thing being visiting more frequently.
Yeah, that's kind of an important thing.
Yes.
So
and I explained like my entire situation had changed as of like end of February.
Right.
With that promotion I got, my entire situation changed.
So it basically gives you a little bit more money to travel, I'm assuming, or...
And when I'm ready to move, my employer will pay all moving expenses, pay first 3 months of rent, find me a job, etc., etc.
Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with that.
For my previous job that I had been promoted from, for my role in almost all of Ontario, I was number 4 out of about 1,200 people doing my job.
Okay, wow, high.
So they're like, the first question I get asked is, "Are you mobile? Like, can we move you to a bigger center where you can do more?" That's the first question I get.
Gotcha.
And I've had it like 5 times. Tuesday, I'm going to get it again because we have some of our district people coming in.
Well, enjoy Tuesday, I guess. How are things going now, though, between the two of you? Because it seems like you're working a strategy out, but are things still going pretty good between the two of you?
Well, it's because of the nature of the situation. It's like there wasn't this huge enthusiasm because it's like there's still a lot of fear and a lot of trying to resolve a lot of things.
I also imagine he's just had this horrific car accident, so that has to be weighing on his mind as well.
Mm-hmm. He's not able to drive for the next 6 months, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things on his mind. His job, the contract he's on, ends in the end of June, so there's a lot going on. So, and I'm aware of this, but he's actually telling me these things now.
Which he didn't before.
Yeah, so it's what I've been working on is mostly like just trying to get us back into like doing stuff together. So I flew back Wednesday, and
wow, you saw him again fast.
No, no, I haven't seen him. I flew back here on Wednesday.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
Other direction. And while I was traveling, I actually asked him, "It's like, hey, give you a call tomorrow?" And it's just so that I can establish more like having actual interaction with us again.
Yeah.
So just trying to rebuild the interaction so that we start building together. Yeah. I'm looking at when I'm next going to be traveling. I've got actually possibly the next 3 trips figured out.
Awesome. So space-wise, how much time will go by where you guys don't see each other before the next trip?
Between 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. I could swing that. Let me see. Jen and I, when we were in our long-distance relationship, it was like that. Every 4 to 6 weeks, we would see each other, and we'd see each other for like 3 or 4 days, and then that would be it. We'd go back.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what I'm looking at. It'll be it will end up being between 4 to 8 weeks, but I'm also trying to implement more of like using Discord more, talking, FaceTime, things like that.
We did texting all throughout the day, and then after she would be done with work, she would call me every single day. And every once in a while, she wouldn't call me after work. And I remember it drove me nuts because I was like, I had gotten to this routine of she's going to call me right at 5 p.m. And I was at Central time zone, and she was in Eastern. So I was like, okay, right when it's exact situation here. 4 p.m., she's going to call me. And then it wouldn't, like, the call wouldn't come. And I remember I just paced around my room, like, really angrily, like, stupid now that I think about it. Now, like three odd years later, but like at the time, it was like such a big deal to me to have her call me. So, but yeah, that was essential. We would usually talk. I'm trying to think for usually like an hour or 2 every single night, and then we'd kind of just end the conversation. She would have to go to bed pretty early, and I always stayed up super, super late. But I remember eventually we kind of figured out that we wanted to give it a try, and I decided that I would move to her because I could do what I do basically anywhere as long as I have an internet connection and a laptop. So I remember I moved there, but I remember the whole month leading up to it, I was a nervous wreck. It was just because I had always lived with someone like my parents, at the time. So it was like such a shell shock. I was going to this place where I didn't really know anyone except her. There was like no guarantee that would work out. Luckily it did. But I just remember I was a nervous wreck. And I remember it was so weird because we moved in together. We figured, okay, well, let's just give this a try. I know it's kind of like they don't recommend it, but just going into the hornet's nest, we're just going to live together right off the bat. And so it was so weird for me because we didn't have any furniture other than a desk for me to work at with like my iMac or something. And I just remember, we had like a TV too, but I just remember like going grocery shopping for the first time. And I remember like literally eating in the apartment on a towel. Like I made like macaroni and cheese and was just like watching like HBO or something on the floor. And I was just like, this is really, really bizarre. Like so much drastically different than what I was used to, like at my parents' house, which was a house that had like furniture, we just like had a bed and like some like other little stuff, but we didn't have like a couch or anything. But it was a shell shock for me. So actually, for me, the hardest part was actually when we actually sort of getting used to that. It wasn't so much the relationship long distance for me. It was actually living together and trying to navigate that I found that to be a little bit more difficult. But it's interesting to hear that you're kind of in a similar situation, although I'm sure you're not going to. It seems like you're probably a little bit more practiced at stuff like that. Like it seems like you've been in relationships before where you've lived with people. I had never done that before, so I imagine it won't work out as shell shocking as it was for me, but who knows? I mean, it is something that you have to take into account.
Definitely. No matter what, it's always a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change, but for me, it was really, really worth it. Greatest decision I've ever made.
Aw.
Big risk, big rewards though.
Yeah, with risk comes reward.
Yep.
You don't take the chance, and nothing happens.
Yep, that's true. All right, so you have a really fascinating situation. What would you say? I mean, I guess this will be the last question because we've been talking for almost an hour. We we get along really well, guys.
Nerd stuff.
Yeah, right. What would you say was like the most impactful thing you did to get him back? Like, in your opinion?
Booking a flight at the last minute and flying out to go and see him.
So, your strategy is
me.
basically cause him to have a car accident and then book a...
Yeah. Yeah, the universe and I may get along. I don't think we get along quite that well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, it was just...
taking a risk, basically.
It was, for me, it was just taking a risk, and you know what? Taking that chance. Because it's like, if I didn't go... Like, I looked at it at the other side as well. It's like, if I did not go when he actually needed me there, even if he didn't realize he needed me there or not, what chance did I stand if I wasn't there when he was in that situation?
Now,
if I wasn't there.
I think the interesting thing to also look at is all of the stuff you did leading up to that. Because if you hadn't, let's say you just had never talked to him at all and then you just showed up unannounced, do you think he still would have taken you back? Or do you think like all the stuff?
No.
So you think that had to happen in that order for it to work for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it was just like this, almost like his, I want to say like a continued story of just like slowly rebuilding. Like if I hadn't become friends with those two particular friends on Facebook and talking to them, I wouldn't have had them. Like the day I found out about the car accident, I added his mom as a friend on Facebook and I was like, how are you doing? And just, what happened?
Right.
And just started talking. And it's like, when I went there, his family, like his mom and dad, were just like, I was the greatest thing to ever happen in his life.
Aw.
Like they were so happy I was there.
So you saw his parents?
Yes.
Like at the hospital, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, both his parents were there. I think they were shocked to see me, but like his mom was like instant. Do you need a place to stay here? Like you can use the spare room, this and this. His dad was like, hey, when he got discharged from the hospital, let's go out for ice cream and everything like that. And like, so pick a bottle of wine for supper so that we can like, it was something else. Like they just like full on opened their home to me.
That's good. Sphere of influence.
It was a gamble I took. Like it was a huge gamble. I'm a Sagittarius, though. I'm lucky.
I think it is a huge gamble, but it worked out for you. I think it's probably just a lesson because you knew when to pick the risk. You know, like some other stuff I don't know. It was pretty bold to do the Cirque du Soleil thing as well. So it seems like you're.
What part of me is not bold? That's just me.
That's true.
It's part of what he fell for in the first place.
That's right. So one of the things he fell for in that list that you said you did is boldness.
Oh, it was my charismatic personality.
Ah, that's what we're going with. Charismatic personality. Got it. Just like I'm talking to myself, I swear to God.
The answer is, but I'm bigger, badder, and better looking.
I don't know about better looking. I mean, come on. Have you seen? No, I'm just kidding. Way better looking. All right. Well,
again, my personality.
On that note, anything you want to say before we go bye-bye?
Nothing that I can really think of, but yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. If I have a unique perspective and can help you out with anything, please feel free to ask.
And one of the best ways you can ask her is to get into our private support group, which I think you'll say it's been pretty helpful for you.
Fully. I've met some amazing people there who I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't be doing what I am now without them.
Thanks for listening to the Ex-Boyfriend Recovery Podcast at www.exboyfriendrecovery.com.